He sold frozen water and built an empire. In the 1800s, before electricity, before refrigeration, a man carved blocks of winter from frozen lakes in New England and shipped them across the tropics. To Havana, to Calcutta, to Bombay. Ice, melting by the hour, became more valuable than gold. People drank cold cocktails in India while the workers who cut that ice froze to death in Massachusetts. Luxury had never been this fragile. One storm, one delay, 1 degree too warm, and the fortune was gone. But Frederick Tudor didn't just sell ice, he sold the illusion of control over nature, over time, over decay itself. And for a while it worked. The world bought the dream of eternal freshness and built an economy around melting. Because comfort isn't just convenience, it's power. And in a world where warmth meant poverty, cold became the new currency. In 1806, a ship left Boston carrying the most ridiculous cargo anyone had ever seen: ice. Thousands of blocks carved from a frozen New England lake, packed in sawdust and bound for the Caribbean. When the ship's captain told the dockworkers what he was hauling, they laughed. By the time he reached Havana, most of it had melted. He lost money, respect, and nearly his mind. But the man behind it, Frederick Tudor, refused to quit. He wasn't selling a product, he was selling a feeling. In a world where heat ruled everything, where food rotted and drinks boiled, he promised the impossible: cold. He built ice houses in the tropics, insulated with sawdust and ambition. He bribed captains, begged investors, and went bankrupt, and twice. They called him the Mad Yankee. But Tudor kept going, one shipment at a time, until the unthinkable happened. People started to want what he sold. Bars began serving chilled drinks. Hospitals stored medicine longer. Wealthy families filled their cellars with northern luxury. And suddenly, frozen water, once a joke, became a status symbol. Tudor had done what no empire, no church, no king had ever done. He commodified nature itself. He turned winter into wealth. And every cube of ice he shipped wasn't just cold, it was capitalism, crystallized. Because once people learn to pay for comfort, they never stop. Frederick Tudor's madness had become a movement. By the 1820s, America wasn't just exporting goods, it was exporting winter. From frozen ponds outside Boston, men carved massive blocks of ice, their axes echoing like drums of industry. Each block was dragged, stacked, and stored in giant wooden ice houses, cathedrals of cold. At night, the air steamed with breath and frost. By day, sawdust flew like snow in summer. And when the rivers thawed, ships waited at the docks, ready to carry this fragile fortune halfway across the world. The routes looked insane on paper: Boston to Calcutta, Maine to Rio, New England to Havana. But Tudor had built the first global cold chain, a system that connected climates, economies, and classes. He became the Ice King, and his empire stretched further than any crown. From palace banquets in India to plantation bars in the Caribbean, the rich drank cold cocktails while the poor cut their fingers on the frozen blocks that made them possible. Ice didn't just chill drinks, it cooled tempers, preserved food, and redefined luxury itself. A century earlier, cold had been a curse. Now it was currency. The irony? The hotter the world got, the richer Tudor became. Because every degree of discomfort was another sale. He wasn't just shipping ice, he was shipping hope. A promise that man could finally master nature and bottle perfection. But perfection always comes with a cost, and soon the world's hunger for cold would start to melt everything else. By the mid-1800s, ice wasn't just a product, it was a power structure. Every empire wanted it, every colony paid for it, and every shipment carried the same message: comfort belongs to the powerful. In Calcutta, the British elite sipped chilled gin and tonics, while Indian servants carried melting blocks through the heat, their bare hands blistering from the cold. In Havana, sugar barons filled their mansions with imported ice, while the slaves who cut the cane never tasted a cube. Ice had become the most invisible luxury of all, a symbol of progress that only the rich could afford. And that made it the perfect tool of empire. Frederick Tudor didn't conquer lands, he conquered temperature. He sold the tropics their own defeat, proof that even the sun could be tamed for a price. But this wasn't just business, it was ideology. Cold meant control, freshness meant superiority. A cool drink became a cultural signal, civilization in a glass. And behind that illusion of refinement was a brutal economy of bodies. Thousands of men cut, carried, and loaded ice through freezing winters and blistering summers, often dying from exhaustion, exposure, or infection. But they were invisible. Because progress, like ice, always melts before you see what made it solid. Still, the world was hooked. Ice ships crossed oceans faster than rumours. Markets grew. Profits soared. And for the first time in history, nature itself was on a payment plan. It was capitalism in its purest form, turning necessity into novelty, climate into commodity, and inequality into infrastructure. The empire of cold had no borders, only customers. By the late 19th century, the empire of ice was unstoppable, until someone decided to reinvent winter. In 1876, German engineer Carl von Linde built a machine that could do what nature had done for free: make cold. No more frozen lakes, no more ships crossing oceans, just pipes, pressure, and progress. At first, no one took it seriously. Who would trade pure New England ice for artificial cold? But efficiency always wins. Within a decade, mechanical refrigeration was cheaper, faster, and limitless. Tudor's frozen ponds, once worth fortunes, became obsolete overnight. The Ice King had built an empire on scarcity, and technology had just made cold infinite. Factories that once packed sawdust now produced ammonia and steel. Refrigerators began appearing in city homes. Breweries used chillers to keep beer fresh year-round. And in slaughterhouses, ice became automation. What had once been luxury became logistics. Cold wasn't rare anymore, it was infrastructure. And with that shift came a new paradox. Humanity had mastered temperature, but lost touch with the world it came from. The same technology that preserved food also preserved inequality. Refrigerated ships carried meat from colonies to capitals. Farmers froze debts as fast as goods. And while the rich now owned machines to make cold, the poor still worked in its shadow, loading, hauling, freezing, forgotten. The age of natural ice was over, but the dream that built it, control, comfort, and consumption, was just beginning. The Cold Revolution didn't end Tudor's legacy, it fulfilled it, because he hadn't just taught the world to buy ice, he taught it to buy control. And once humanity learned to manufacture winter, it never wanted to feel summer again. By the 20th century, the world had achieved the impossible. Summer was optional. Refrigerators hummed in every kitchen. Iceboxes turned into status symbols. And the cool lifestyle Tudor once sold to kings was now available to everyone for the right price. But the empire he built was melting into something bigger and far more dangerous. Cold had become invisible. We no longer saw it as a miracle, just a rite. We forgot that behind every perfect meal, every frosted drink, and every shipment of fresh produce, there was fire. Coal, oil, electricity. The machines that freed us from nature had quietly chained us to energy. We no longer feared heat, we fueled it. The irony is brutal. The same instinct that carved ice from ponds now melts glaciers from the poles. We call it progress. But it's the same hunger, the desire to make comfort permanent no matter the cost. Today, the global cold chain is worth trillions. It feeds cities, powers supermarkets, and preserves everything, except the planet that made it possible. Frederick Tudor's dream didn't die. It evolved. His blocks of ice became compressors, his ships became freighters, and his empire became the world economy. Because when you sell comfort long enough, it stops being a luxury and becomes a need. And that's the true cost of cold. Once you have it, you can't live without it. In the end, the story of ice isn't about cold. It's about control. For centuries, humans chased comfort through conquest, cutting it from lakes, shipping it across oceans, and finally building machines to make it on demand. We told ourselves it was progress, but it was dependence, frozen into every part of our lives. The ice trade didn't just preserve food. It preserved a mindset that nature exists to be harvested, that comfort is worth any cost, and that convenience is civilization. From Tudor's frozen ponds to the humming compressors of today, the empire of cold never ended. It just became invisible,